Most people grow up hearing one rule about money that feels absolutely unquestionable: avoid debt at all costs. From a young age, it gets repeated again and again. Debt is dangerous, debt will trap you, and debt will take away your freedom. You're told to cut up your credit cards, never borrow money, and only spend what you already have. And if you look around, that advice seems completely logical, because you see people buried in loans, working harder every year, yet somehow falling further behind. So naturally, you begin to believe something very simple. Rich people must have avoided debt completely. They must have saved every dollar, played it safe, and never taken financial risks. But here's the part that almost no one tells you. This belief is completely wrong. In fact, many of the richest people in the world are carrying massive amounts of debt, millions, sometimes even billions. And the craziest part is that they're not stressed about it. They don't see debt as a burden, they see it as power. Now, before we go deeper, if you want to understand how money really works, the kind of knowledge schools never teach, you should consider subscribing, because once you see this clearly, you'll never look at money the same way again. Here's the real problem. For the average person, debt feels like pressure, a slow, invisible weight that keeps getting heavier. It usually starts small, with a few credit card purchases that seem harmless at first. Then the balance grows, interest kicks in, and minimum payments start piling up. After that comes a car loan, maybe student loans, and before you even realize it, a large portion of your future income is already committed. Every month turns into the same cycle. You wake up, go to work, earn money, and then watch a significant part of it disappear into bills and interest payments. And the worst part is that you're not actually moving forward. You're not building anything or getting ahead, you're simply maintaining your lifestyle. This is why so many people feel stuck. No matter how hard they work, they remain in the same place, running on a financial treadmill that never stops. Because of this, the advice to avoid debt feels reasonable, and for most people it is correct, but only when we're talking about a certain type of debt. What most people are never clearly taught is that not all debt is the same. There are two completely different types, and understanding this distinction can change everything. The first type is bad debt, which is what most people experience. It is used to buy things that lose value over time and do not generate any income. High-interest credit cards, expensive phones, luxury items bought for status, and cars that depreciate quickly all fall into this category. This type of debt takes money out of your pocket every single month and keeps you financially stuck. It creates a cycle where you are constantly paying but never progressing. However, there is another type of debt that works very differently. It is called good debt, and it is used to acquire assets, things that either grow in value, generate income, or ideally do both. This includes real estate, businesses, and investments. Unlike bad debt, this type has the potential to put money into your pocket instead of taking it out. Once you truly understand this difference, you begin to see why wealthy people do not fear debt. They don't run from it, they use it strategically and stay in control of it. To really understand how powerful this idea is, imagine two individuals who both have $100,000. The first person decides to avoid debt completely and uses all of that money to buy an asset outright. The second person, however, takes a different approach. Instead of using all their money, they use that $100,000 as a down payment and borrow additional money to acquire a much larger asset, let's say worth $500,000. Now, if that asset increases in value, the first person benefits only from the growth of $100,000, while the second person benefits from the growth of the full $500,000. Both started with the same amount of money, but the outcomes are dramatically different. This difference is known as leverage, and it is one of the most powerful tools in wealth creation. The wealthy understand that they do not need to rely on only their own money. They can use other people's money, banks, investors, and financial institutions to expand their reach and accelerate their growth. And once you see this clearly, a question naturally comes up. If this is so powerful, why doesn't everyone do it? The answer lies in how debt is used and managed. Debt is not just about borrowing money, it's about structuring it intelligently. When used correctly, it can even make your finances more efficient. In many cases, the interest paid on certain loans can reduce taxable income, lowering the real cost of borrowing. This means you are borrowing money, investing it into income-generating assets, and at the same time reducing your tax burden. It allows your wealth to grow from multiple directions at once. But this is not something most people are taught. It requires knowledge, discipline, and a deep understanding of risk. Debt is a double-edged sword. Used incorrectly, it can destroy you, but used wisely, it can elevate you to another level. This is where the real gap between the wealthy and the average person begins. The wealthy do not take random loans or make emotional decisions about money. They calculate everything. They analyze cash flow, study potential returns, negotiate better interest rates, and structure deals in ways that protect them. Because they understand the financial system, they are able to make it work in their favor. They gain access to lower interest rates, better financial products, and stronger networks. So while the average person is paying high interest on liabilities that lose value, the wealthy are paying lower interest to acquire assets that grow. Over time, this difference compounds, creating a gap that becomes wider and wider. What is even more surprising is that the wealthy do not use debt occasionally. They build entire financial systems around it. From the outside, it might look like they own everything outright, but behind the scenes, much of it is financed. They are constantly borrowing, reinvesting, expanding, and repeating the cycle. In a way, they turn debt into a machine that keeps generating more wealth. So what does this mean for you? It does not mean that you should immediately go out and take on large amounts of debt. That would be a mistake. The real lesson is to shift your mindset. Instead of asking how to avoid debt completely, start asking how to use it intelligently. Focus on acquiring assets instead of liabilities. Learn how money flows, understand investments, and study how successful people evaluate risk and return. Once you begin to see the system clearly, you will start to recognize opportunities that were previously invisible to you. Most importantly, you will stop fearing the very tool that has the potential to transform your financial future. At the end of the day, debt itself is not the enemy. Misused debt is. When used poorly, it traps you in a cycle that is difficult to escape. But when used wisely, it can help you build income, acquire valuable assets, and achieve financial freedom. Debt is like fire. In the wrong hands, it can destroy everything. But in the right hands, it can build entire cities. And the difference is not the tool, it's the person using it.